Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
Welcome back to the Deep Share Podcast. Tonight, we get to talk about two of my favorite subjects. While they're unrelated, mountaineering and near-death experiences, we're going to see how they kind of synergize. And my guest is a reverend, an author, a mountain climber himself, Peter Panagore. How's it going, man?
Hey, Andy, it's great to meet you already.
Hell yeah, man. This is crazy. Off air, we've already hit on a number of synchronicities growing up from the same state and the same area. It's pretty wild, man. It's good to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Hell yeah, dude. This is great. So just let's get into it. Let's give my audience a little bit of background. Tell us how you came to this topic of near-death experiences. It comes from a mountaineering story, right? But not from this area, because I'm always up in New Hampshire. I'm sure you used to go up to the White Mountains and everything, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Those were my big mountains, but I've never been up to Canada. You went all the way up to where I've always wanted to go. That's
I grew
wild.
up hiking in the Whites and the Greens and the Berkshires, and So I'll jump in a little bit with this. So I was a student at UMass Amherst. I was in the English department, and I wanted to go away for my junior year, so I went on national student exchange to Montana State University. So I was my whole thing happened in Bozeman, and the reason why I went there was because of the mountains. And so before I even went on this thing that happened to me, I went into the Tetons and Glacier, Yellowstone, the Absarokies, Spanish Peaks. I was climbing all over the place.
You went for it.
Oh, I had a limit. I knew I had a limited window of opportunity to spend as much time in the mountains as I could.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was my early 20s to like mid 30s. And now, just being a dad and a family man and working and all that, I don't get out there anywhere near as much as I want to. But honestly, there's been a few opportunities in the wintertime, and I'm just like, I don't know if my body can do it anymore. And I don't know if my mind can do it anymore. All the other seasons are fine, but man, going out there overnight in negative temperatures is so vicious these days. I'm getting old, I guess.
Well, being a dad, it takes up all the time, and then when it's a hard thing to be out in the sub-zero temperatures.
At least I want to bring him out there eventually, have him experience it, right?
Oh, you will.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Anyway, so I was out in Bozeman, and I didn't want to come back to home, to Marlboro. I'm from Marlboro, and so I didn't want to come back to Marlboro for spring break but my sister, who went to Marlboro High, so I'm making an establishment here for the audience. We're from the same area. And,
this is wild. Central Massachusetts.
Central Mass. So my sister, after she graduated from high school, she ran away. But from my family's point of view, she vanished. She disappeared, and it hurt a lot in my family, and that hurt continued to extend for year after year after year. And so when I was in Montana to get away, not just to be in the mountains, but to get away from my family and the pain that was in my house. And so come that spring break, I'm like, I'm not going to go back to Boston and step into that horror hell show of my emotional life. So I went looking for somebody to go on an adventure with, and I went to the outdoor club where I had been a member for this year as a student. And this guy had posted up this thing outside. He's taken a 10-day backcountry snow caving, ice climb in British Columbia and Alberta. and which is north of Montana for those folks who don't know where that area is. And so we met and we did a weekend trip together. We found that we were compatible and we had a matching skill sets and complementary skill sets.
That's
And
always
so
good.
yeah, so it was good. I was in the National Ski Patrol and at Bridger Bowl, and so I was the first responder guy, and he had all the gear because he came from a pretty wealthy family. So he had this this phenomenal tent, and he had all the climbing gear. And
that's the problem with mountaineering, man. You get into it, you're like, I want to take this seriously, and then a few $1,000s later, you're like, I took it seriously, and now, oh my god, that's why those guys are always living in cars and shit when they're in Yosemite climbing all the time.
That's right. The gear, because the gear.
Oh,
and you have
I was such a gear nerd.
Yeah, but there's the thing. There's a reason you're a gear nerd, because
yeah,
the better gear you have, the better your trip is.
Oh yeah, when you skimp, oh, it's bad.
Yep. Wow. I don't think I've ever done an interview with anybody who actually knew what I was talking about in terms of the mountaineering stuff.
Absolutely, man. I'm right here with you.
All right.
I have right next to this room is just thousands of dollars worth of mountaineering gear.
I'm sure.
And it's yeah, I use a lot of it. I still do, I still get out there. It's almost like it makes you get out there because you like invested so much, you know what I mean? It's like,
Especially
I better
if you're
use
married.
those crampons at some point.
If you're married, you're like, did you spend the money on this for no reason at all?
Thank God I spent most of that money before I was married. Thank God, because it never would have happened.
No, especially when you have kids.
Oh, hell no. Yeah, no, I would have never had any of this stuff.
Wow. All right. So I was a college student and I had limited money. And so I had limited gear. So I've had to borrow all the gear that I needed. I had skis. I bought new skis. I bought these really cool. Well, I could nerd out, but I won't. I'll stop my nerding out. But I had skis, and I was a backcountry skis, and I had a nice backpack. I had to borrow a deep winter bag, and we went out for this 8-day snow cave trip to Mount Assiniboine in British Columbia. So this is off of the Icefields Parkway, north of Banff, south of Jasper. Within a day's drive of the Arctic Circle is the way I think about it. It's close. And it was March. There was about 10 feet of snow on the ground. And so we skied out. I don't know how far we went. I'd have to look at a map. But we had 8 days out there, and it was great living in snow caves and
so cool.
And there was a cabin or two along the way. And we skied back out. We had adventures. What really happened on that is that we learned to trust each other. When you're in the middle of the wilderness, and you have one other person with you, and you are hundreds of miles from any sort of rescue, you really got to trust the guy you're with.
Yes.
Because your life is at risk every moment. So anyway, we learned to start to trust each other pretty deeply. And Tim, that's his name. Tim had just finished his certification in ice climbing. And so I felt safe with him. And so we went to the ice climb, and there's this place called Lower Weeping Wall, and it's on a mountain called Cirrus Mountain, Cirrus, like the clouds, Cirrus. And it's right on the Icefields Parkway. It's probably 70 yards in, maybe 100 yards in off the parking lot. So here's the setup. We're north of Banff. To the west side is the Saskatchewan River, and a mountain range behind that. And to the east side is this other mountain range. The parkway runs right up the middle of this incredibly beautiful place. Very wildly beautiful. So we park there and we get into the climb, and there's probably 5 or 6 other teams already climbing. We're the last guys in. And I couldn't come up with all the gear I needed. And I couldn't buy the gear, so I had to borrow the gear. And so I borrowed an axe and I borrowed a hammer, which you can climb with, but I can tell you right now, it's not advisable.
No.
Because as you know, with an axe, you set an axe, you can with the strap on the axe, you can relax and you can kind of rest on this thing. But with the hammer, the strap the strap is really there so you don't drop it. It's not for any other reason. Like the one on the hammer has a purpose to not drop it, but also to relax on it. But the hammer, you put the hammer in, it's so much shorter. You have to grip it. And that was what the problem was. And I knew that going into it that I didn't have the right gear. in terms of the axes. And Tim knew this too, but we were both, I had just turned 21 and I was pretty bravado, you know, I can do this.
Yeah.
Right?
And I can relate directly with you when it comes to like the mountaineering, taking chances here and there and kind of feeling your oats and feeling like I've been doing this a long time. I know my limits. I know where my strengths are. I can handle this.
That's
I
exactly.
can relate to that.
That was my attitude. And I've been, well, I don't know if I said this on camera, how many I had gone and climbed all these mountain ranges when I was
Mentioned
there.
it off camera. Yeah.
All right. So I spent as much time as I could in all these different mountain ranges doing all this high adventure. So I was completely in my element, but this mistake slowed our climb down significantly. So it's a 500 or 600 foot climb. And I'd never climbed ice at this point. I'd only climbed rock. So this was a new experience for me. And it was safer than rock in some ways and more dangerous than rock in some ways. And the temperature in particular is the problem, especially when the sun goes down at night and you're stuck. And that's what happened to us, because my climb was significantly slower than everybody else's climb because I had to keep resting because I burned out my forearms with having to grip this hammer the whole time. Yeah. And just for all of you out there who are nerds of climbing, you have to maintain 3 points of contact.
Yes.
And that means 2 feet and a hand or 2 hands and a foot. And so, you know, I'm always working this thing. And I don't know, maybe 2 hours before the sun went down, we knew we were in serious trouble because we're still ascending, and you can't turn around on a climb like this. You can't walk out like you're on a mountain, right. A mountain trail. You don't. No. You got to go up. So we had to go up, and a couple hours before the sun went down, we knew the sun was going down, and we were watching the early teams leave, and we had. And no one else was climbing. Everybody else was traversing and rappelling. And so we're like still trying to get up there. So we get up to the top, and I'm the slow one. And Tim knew we discussed this. We knew that I was doing this with the hammer and the axe. So he was in agreement with me. And we get to the top of the climb, and we're sitting on this ledge, and the sun goes down. And as the sun goes down, we watch the last team walk out, and they're leaving, and they look up at us and they kind of give us the wave, like this. What are you doing? What are you, out of your mind? Kind of thing. And they left, and the sun went down, and the temperature dropped about 30 degrees in an instant. And so all of a sudden, because it's a wet sport, I was sweating. This is also in the time before super high tech gear. Polypropylene underwear, long underwear for polypropylene, had just come out, and I bought one. So I had a polypro top on, and wool was I was dressed in wool.
Right. And there was no merino wool back then, let alone all the the polyesters and the synthetic things that we have now. Nothing. You know, the North Face Ventrix jackets that, when you're still, it's going to do this. And when you're moving, it's going to do this. Like, we have some pretty high-tech gear that you did not have access to back then.
I was wearing Army
stills.
Army surplus,
go ahead.
Army surplus wool pants.
I've seen friends make that mistake.
and my boots. So I had crampons, but my boots were actually 1960s leather ski boots. Yeah,
not uncommon to be wearing those mountaineering back then. I mean, no. You kind of use what you had and what you could get your hands on.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was sweaty, and ice had been falling down my back the whole day, ice chipping away and all this kind of stuff. So we get up there, and so we're wet. I'm wet. We drunk all our water. We'd eaten all our food. It was a day climb. None of the other teams had brought up extra gear either. We didn't. Right. And the temperature drops, and the temperature, suddenly our bodies begin to go into the early stages of hypothermia. And the first step for us was I described them as violent shivers. And it was as if every single individual muscle in my body, small and large, was pulsating independent of every other muscle. So the whole thing is like this twitch, my jaw, my everything. And it's just shaking, because the body is like, oh my God, I'm getting cold. And so I'm going to stay warm. And so now we've got this shake going on, and that's a scary thing because the sun's gone down. We know that I know, because I've been trained in this. This is death. You know, you are in a situation like this, you're going to die here because you're 500 or 600 feet up and there's no way to get warm. So we talked about snuggling together. You know, you canoodle up against the mountain, but neither of us were warm enough for that even to be a consideration, and we kept getting colder. So we knew.
I can feel this experience. I can literally feel it, man. Because there's no going inside. It's an experience that no New Englander that doesn't climb is familiar with, because they're outside smoking a cigarette and it's fucking -5 degrees out and it's freezing. They're going back inside in 5 minutes. And that feeling of never being able to go back inside is just, it's unlike anything else.
Terrifying. We were terrified because and the other thing about both of us is we both knew that panic meant death sooner. So we were both very calm. We both kept our heads level. We forced ourselves into that, but we did. We were both very calm about it. And had this discussion with our jaws clattering. My teeth were clattering like a cartoon, and you know, trying not to bite my tongue as we're talking. And we decided that we were going to die there. And if we were going to die there, we better try to get off the mountain and die that way. If we're going to die, we're going to die trying to save ourselves.
Damn right.
So Tim hauls up the line. It's a double line. So it's 150 feet of line. And he hauls this thing up and ends up this huge knot because he laid the line wrong because we're scared. So now it's a tangle. I don't know whether he dropped the end. I don't know. It's kind of dark. The sun had gone down, but there were 10 zillion stars in the sky full of all these beautiful colors and shapes of starlight. So we could sort of see too. It wasn't, we were blind in the blind dark. So I took off my gloves and they were leather. Okay. So I'm wearing half gloves here because my hands still get cold. I'm sitting in my studio and I put on my gloves because the place hadn't heated up fast enough and I was cold. So I had leather chaps on with rag wool mittens. And so I had to pull these things off, and frostbite began immediately. So it started right then, but I had to have it off so that I could untangle the rope. So I untangled the rope, and I don't know how long that took. So then Tim tied himself off, and I stepped back maybe 10 or 15 feet. I don't remember what the distance was. And I tied off to him, and I, slung the line over me. And plus I have all the screws hanging off of me. And so clinky clanky and the axes, and it's the dark. And we traverse in this semi-dark across this ledge on the ice with the 500 or 600 foot drop beside us, and right shoulders to the mountain. And we make our traverse in the dark to this first rappel. And we're also skinny guys. So I'm 21 years old. I have no body fat on me at all. And as I walked, I felt my energy being drained from me. I began to feel like my meter kept going down, click, 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 click. Every time I talked, every time I moved. And Tim was in the same situation. So we decided that neither of us would say a word we didn't need to say.
Yeah.
And you know how it is in climbing, you try to be as efficient with every move as possible.
Yes.
And so we're trying to be as efficient with every step as possible. So we're very much trying to conserve our energy while we're being pressed up against the cold and our time limit. So the longer we're exposed, the faster the hypothermia continues, but you can't rush, because if you rush, it'll kill you.
Yeah, my friend and I always call it fancy footing. Like, how many segments of fancy footing are we going to have to deal with in bad temperatures or bad conditions or really exposed areas? You know, we always referred to it that way. It's the touch and go zones.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And the touch was the footing, and the go was the falling of the edge. It's like, so
yeah. We
inched our way across, and the first rappel was a tree sticking out of the mountain, like a spruce or a pine or something like that, maybe 8 or 10 inches around. And Tim's like, we're supposed to take this piece of webbing, which, for those who don't know, it's a flat piece of you have webbing right there? Oh, I thought you were reaching for a piece of webbing.
No, not here. No. That would be convenient.
It would have been.
Just hang some backpacks in here and film with some shit.
And, so webbing is this nylon flat tube that's very useful in climbing. And so you tie it in a square knot. Now you can pull like if I put it on a trailer hitch, I could pull a boat with it. It's very strong stuff. So you wrap it around this tree, and then you put the line through it so that the line doesn't lay on the tree. But we were already beginning to lose our rational minds. Hypothermia brings confusion.
Yeah.
And so we decided not to do that because we didn't want to waste this like $5 or $10 piece of webbing because it's money. It's like, we don't want to lose that. So we decided to lay the line over the tree, and Tim descends and I go down after him. And at the very bottom of this, there's a bit of an overhang. So it's mostly rappelling off the mountain on the way down. And then you get to the overhang, you slide down, and we get to this big ledge, and it's maybe the size of, I'm going to guess 12 by 12, something like that, maybe bigger, maybe smaller. But there's about 3 feet of snow on this. And Tim is looking out at this beautiful setting behind us. And I'm now in charge of the rope. I unclip myself and I pull on the rope, and it's stuck. It's now frozen to the tree above.
Oh no.
So I can't get this thing free. And I'm yanking on it, and I put all of my weight on it, and I can't get it free. And Tim comes over, I tell him, of course, and he comes over, and together on one side of the line, we're both hanging on this thing, and it won't come. There's nothing. We're jumping on it and nothing. So we don't know what to do. And now, we're stuck, no rope, can't go up, can't go down. It's the temperature's dropping. We get to this place in the hypothermic situation where we're beginning to lose our coordination. So all you New Englanders out there who've walked in the snow or anywhere you are, there's this thing called post holing. You're familiar, right? So you lift your knee up way high and you drop your foot in, and I couldn't. I've been doing it my whole life. I just kept falling over. I couldn't walk in the snow. So Tim decides to use this hitch called a Persic hitch. Are you familiar with that?
No.
I'd never heard of it either. But it's a kind of hitch. He had this very thin cord. Climbing cord's very thin cord. He had a lot of it, and so he cut off these two long off the spool. These were 6 feet of each one was 6 feet long, and he tied this hitch onto the right side of the rope and the left side. And the way this hitch works with these huge loops is that it had some crazy number like 96 or 98% friction. So you could slide this thing up.
Oh yeah.
Locks in. So nowadays they have these things called ascenders.
Yeah, that's what the name I'm familiar with.
Right. This was pre-ascender. This is what
yeah.
and
this is grungy shit.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know about this. Thank God he did. So he knows this hitch, and he ties this hitch on one side and the other side with these big, huge loops, puts his left foot in one loop, his right foot in the other loop. I take the rope, I wrapped it around my waist, and I made it as taut as I could standing up. And then I lay down in the snow because the rope has stretch in it. So I'm trying to make this thing as taut as possible, because he said to me that he felt that he was responsible for our lives because he's the certified guide. He's the leader. So he's the one who's going to ascend up the rope without protection in the dark with hypothermia to get the rope free. And it's got this overhang. So he's got to ascend up over this overhang. And so I'm lying in the snow, and he starts to go up, and I can't see because my face is kind of in the snow, and he went some distance up. I don't know how far up he went, maybe 10 or 12, maybe 20 feet. I don't really know. And then suddenly he says, falling. And he falls, and I kind of try to roll out of the way as quick as I can. And he lands half on me, but there's 3 feet of snow, so it's a soft landing, and he kind of smacks me. But I have a helmet on, so it's not a big deal. And his foot gets tangled up in the cord, and the weight and the gravity takes the rope down. So now the rope has come free because he's fallen and he's okay. So we untie the hitches and we bind up the rope. And as we're on this ledge, we are petrified. I can't tell you the depth of my fear of dying and knowing that this is what's going to happen. And down the parkway comes a set of headlights. All night long, nobody's coming down the parkway. And it goes right by. Oh my God. And we're jumping up and down and waving, and they never see us.
Yeah.
Minutes go by. We're trying to prepare to go off to the next rappel. Another vehicle comes down. I don't know, half an hour later, 20 minutes later, as we're getting ourselves together to do this, and it turns into the parking lot across the street where our car is, and turns around, and we jumping up and down and waving our arms, and he flashes his lights, and it's the warden.
Oh,
Because
wow.
the night before we had driven up to this town called Jasper, where
Yep.
we'd gone to the grocery store and we bought some food. And by the time we get back to where we thought we were going to camp, it was way too late and dark, and we couldn't find the place. And so we go to the warden's cabin, and it must have been, I don't know, dinner time. And so we talked him into letting us sleep in his cabin. He didn't really like the idea, but he let us sleep in the cabin if we cooked him dinner and cleaned up. So
Wow.
So this is what we did.
It's
So
like a turn of fate.
it's a turn of fate. So we sign into the log in the morning, because you sign in the wilderness log. Whenever you go in the wilderness, you sign in the log. Where are you
There's
going? Where are
always
you coming?
logs.
Right. So
Let people know where you are.
right. And when you're coming out,
Yeah.
and we didn't come out. And so
Right.
he came looking for us. So we're now heartened. We're like, wow, okay. So we make it over to the next rappel, and now we're off the ice on rock. And this rappel had an iron pin epoxied into the mountain with a ring on it. And it was in rock, and there was sort of a craggy area. So we descend down this craggy area. The moon is up, 3/4 moon sort of, and it's so we can kind of see better. And we get down to the bottom of this rappel. Tim goes to the bottom onto a ledge, and I come down, and I go around this corner, and it's cornered. It's a corner. So you have to come around this corner with the rope, and then in this particular place, there are iron pins with rings epoxied in with carabiners and straps. So now we're clipped into the mountain. So we're for the first time all night, and this is hours and hours and hours later. And in the process of all of this, I'm terrified. I am so terrified that I dig deeper and deeper and deeper into myself as the night progresses, to find that place inside myself to drive myself forward for survival. And I felt like I reached into this deep part of my brain where my animal nature, my animal nature, not my human nature, but this thing of survivability. It was the core of myself, was to survive. That was the most important thing. And so I went from this mental driving myself to survive to tapping into this part of myself that is prehistory. It's pre-human. And so I'm being driven forward by this amount of willpower that I didn't even know that I had. So I'm driving and driving and driving, and I'm keeping myself calm, and hypothermia continues to advance. And I come around the corner, and I clip into the mountain, and I take the rope, and I throw off one end. I should say I tied off one end to myself first. I throw the rope off around the corner, and the warden flashes his lights because we're on the last rappel, and we wave, and off he goes. And now I pull on the rope, and on the very first pull, it jammed in some rock. I couldn't see. That's what I'm thinking happened. I pull on the rope. I maybe got 3 inches or 6 inches, and now I can't move it. It's stuck. And so I snap the line. You know how you snap a line, it creates this waveform, and you can kind of lift it off as stuff. But the rope was touching on the corner of the edge of the ledge. So around this cliff. And so I couldn't snap the line loose. And the more I pulled it, the tighter it got. So that's exactly it. Now we have no rope. Can't ascend back up this thing, because if I go over and I put my weight on it, it's a 150 foot drop.
Yeah.
And so
you're on the home stretch, but you're not even close.
Not even close. Now, and I don't know even how long what time of the night this is. It's sometime after midnight, sometime mid-morning, like 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't really know, but it's taken us hours and hours.
Some perspective, how long every step, every movement, it's so agonizing too when your fingers are killing and you have to articulate and do things with them. It's just the simplest little things that will absolutely ruin you and nearly make you fall apart.
Yeah, because because your body's not able to do what your mind knows that it needs to, and that you're
Right.
desperate to do, because it means your survival. And
Yeah.
and freezing feels like fire.
Yeah. Stinging and needles and
And
everything.
like my hands in coals, my feet are in coals. It's like burning, and my eyeballs are freezing, and my face. It was hard to move my lips. So the more that this got on, the deeper this became, the harder it became to move any single muscle. Do you ever go out swimming in the ocean when it's really, really cold? When the ocean is really, really cold and your muscles start to lock up a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like that. So
Yeah.
everything's hard to move and everything's painful. And we had all this fear going on. And plus we're facing death. And so we're standing on this ledge and we're terrified, and I can't get the rope free. And because of this, what you just described, we discussed untying. It was very difficult for me to tie that last knot. And we discussed me untying it and handing the bitter end. I always find this ironic. The end of the rope is called the bitter end. So I was going to hand the bitter end to Tim, but we discussed, he could drop it. I could drop it because I can't feel anything. My hands have no. So I kept the rope on, and he couldn't help me pull it, and so I had to keep pulling the rope. And at some point, all of the blood, this is what it felt like, all of the blood rushed to my core, to my heart, to my brain, to my belly. And I was thinking, I'm hot. I am hot now. And I knew I knew what this was, because I'd been on the ski patrol and I'd been trained. I knew what was going on, but I didn't care. And so I unzipped my coat because I was hot. And I'm trying to cool myself down. And I remember thinking as I'm unzipping, I'm like, I don't need my feet. I need my heart. I need my brain. I don't need my feet. I can lose my feet. I can lose my hands, but this is the important part. And
talk about animal instinct, like bite your hand off in a trap sort of situation.
Exactly.
Wow.
And Tim yelled at me for unzipping my coat, and I'm like, fuck you. I'm hot.
Like, I know what this is. I'm still doing it.
I'm still doing it. Right. And so I'm laughing about this, but only because I've faced my trauma from the night. I've been back to this place. I went back in 2016.
Wow. Good for you.
That's
awesome.
And until that time, I cried every time I told this story. I don't think I've ever told the story laughing before.
Wow.
So thank you. So I unzipped my coat. I realized that I'm going to die here. Like, I now know my drive suddenly drops. I'm not driven anymore. I feel this wave of peace come over me. I recognize that there's no way I'm getting out of this. The rope is stuck. I'm hot, which is like the second to last, third to last sign. It's a bad sign. People who die of hypothermia are sometimes found naked.
Yeah. We had one up in New Hampshire it's about 10 years ago now, but it was a park ranger that got lost in a storm on Lafayette and went down the ridge on the wrong side and into the northern wilderness, and was found nearly naked days later. Real easy, real sad.
Yeah, because you get confused and your body's telling you one thing that's not really true. Although, I've thought a lot about it over these years. Maybe it's a blessing.
It could be a return to origin point or purity of some kind, related in there somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, and to speed the process.
Oh yeah.
So that was
it feels good, especially, and you know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Trying to end it quicker. And I had this peace come over me, and I remember I turned to face all this time we can hear the Saskatchewan River. So the river's running by, and we can hear it running, and it's incredibly beautiful. And the moonlight is reflecting off the mountains, and as this peace floods into me, I think about my family, my mom and my dad and my sister who's missing, and I think, oh my God, I'm going to die here, and they're going to lose another kid, and my parents it's going to be devastating to them, and it's going to be in the news. And it's going to be it's going to be awful for them. But I had this peace and acceptance that death was what was going to happen to me. And I'm going to give a little religious background here. Okay.
Sure.
So I had been raised Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic. And so I had some religion in my background, and I went to a Catholic high school. But I was a pot smoking acid head. And
wow, more things in common. Just for the audience, we went to the same high school,
we
the
did.
same Catholic indoctrination, and wow, acid, yeah, all that, yeah, good stuff. All right,
right,
coming from perspective, man.
Right, and so, and I had also, okay, here's the twist. I had been a born again charismatic Christian for a period too.
Oh wow, okay.
And so after I had this awakening using purple microdots on Pedro cactus, I took a triple hit, and this in high school, and so I had this spiritual awakening thing happen to me. So I'm up there, and I tell you about the faith part of it because it sort of plays into what I'm about to say next. So I have this experience of peace coming over me, and then I began to fall asleep. And the falling asleep wasn't like I took a nap before this tonight. And I lay on the sofa for a while, kind of snuggle into the pillow, but this kind of falling asleep was a curtain drop on a darkened stage. Boom, the curtain comes down. I'm asleep. I fall down. I smack my head on the rock. I wake up because of the drop, and then I'm back up again, pulling the rope. And then boom, I'm out and I'm back up again. And so then I stand up this time. And as I stand up, all around my vision is a black ring. And this black ring closes very rapidly. And I'm like, what is this? I'm completely confused. Is this? I'd never seen such a thing. I'd heard about it, tunnel vision, and it went to black. And as it's going to black, I think to myself, I must be falling asleep again, but this is weird. And as it goes to black, I'm still awake. It goes to black and I'm still conscious. And I'm like, what is this? And all of my pain's gone. And I'm still
your
conscious.
Exhaustion.
Everything. I'm not exhausted. Everything. I'm just fine. And I don't understand what's going on. And I think to myself, what's going on here? Well, am I not in pain? And as I'm thinking these thoughts, I'm kind of confused. This darkness becomes expansive. And from now on, and everything I'm going to say is a metaphor or simile, because there is no language on the other side. No brains to contain language.
No logic.
No logic. Nothing like that. And the logic, people say, oh, there must be a reason, God must have had a reason for, somebody dying. And it's like an amoeba saying, I understand a human's reasoning capacity. It has nothing to do with it. And so as I'm staring out into this darkness, and this darkness is expansive, and I see the expanse of this darkness when way far in the distance, like a galaxy's distance away, a single pinprick of light appears. And this pinprick of light appears like a pop into the darkness. And as it pops into the darkness, it rushes toward me at an incredible speed, faster than the speed of light. And as it comes to me, it fills my entire vision, and it speaks to me without language, directly to me with knowledge. And it says to me, I'm taking you. And as it says to me, I'm taking you, I think, no, you're not. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not going anywhere. And as it grabs me, it communicates to me power and intellect that is far beyond anything I can describe. And it was so powerful, it just took me against my will and encased me in itself, and then took me. And so I have now 2 points of view. I'm inside of this, people call this an angel, but it's like an orb of consciousness, of conscious energy. And it seems to me, as it's speaking to me, but not in language, it is, there's no distance or difference between its intellectual capacity and its beingness, between its power and its beingness, and between these things and its communication. It is all of these things simultaneously. And I'm inside of it, and I have like a Raggedy Ann doll, I can't move, but I'm content. It's speaking to me power and knowledge and intellect, but it's filling me with comfort and welcome and well-being. And as it's doing this, I have the have this knowledge that it is also the divine presence itself in its fullness. So somehow or other, it's this reduction of the fullness of the divine, and also it's the fullness. So it's sort of, it's superpositioned between these two, and in its fullness, yeah.
And fractal, I would like to.
Yeah, fractals. That's a good word for it. And
Yeah.
so I'm in this, and I can see through it, and it's, you know, the proverbial sitting on a cloud comfort kind of thing, and you know, all the cartoons. But I was not able to move. I was just locked in, and I could see myself from outside, so I could see through this entity into the void as I'm going back up. You know, people call it the tunnel, but it's like a for me, it was like an elevator back up the same channel that it had come down to collect me. And I had a secondary point of view. Pardon?
Sorry, real quick. Are you still aware, like when you're conscious of this, but there's blackness everywhere? Was it just your awareness that was there? You're just like kind of like a point of awareness, or were you aware of your physical body still?
Well, that's what
Just to clarify.
Well, I've been cut off from my physical body. So people talk about the silver cord that connects you when you're right. So I've had that experience too. That's another story. But there was no connection to that. There was no connection to my body at all. It was severed. And
wow.
and I could see myself from outside of myself. So I'm inside of this angelic entity, looking out into the void, being transported with it inside of it. And I had another point of view, seeing this happening from the outside. So I have a kind of non-locus. So I don't have any particular position. I don't have any particular substance to me outside. I just can see myself from the outside, and simultaneously I can see myself from the inside. And
it should be complex and hard to explain. It makes sense this way.
It's totally paradoxical. And I had a body, okay, inside this angelic being, but it wasn't a physical body. It was still shaped like Peter, but it was energy. There were no molecules to me. I was a body of light, you could say.
Okay.
And so and it's still shaped sort of like me. But we travel at this rapid speed. I'm also paralleling myself and this entity, seeing this happen from these other. I'm superpositioned. I see two from two places at once. Wow. And suddenly we're where it emerged into this void space between heaven and earth. And we're up to this edge, and it like ejects me or unfolds. I don't really, this is part of my NDE that I'm not really sure what happened. But suddenly I am outside of it, and I'm in a much deeper, darker, illuminated darkness. So this is a darkness that has light, but it's not like you think it would be. It's pitch black darkness, but I can see in the pitch black darkness. And I am now inside of the body of heaven, of a heaven, and I am an orb of energy. And I don't have a light body like I do with shape anymore. I am like an orb of energy, and I am in a no thingness. I am no thing. And there is no thing here. This is nothingness. But this nothingness has, I don't know, a substance to it that
like
is
emanation. Yeah, it's behind the eye. It's, as Buddhists would say.
Yes, I'll go with that for sure. And so I'm this energetic ball of consciousness that I can see in every direction at once. So I'm like covered with 10,000 eyes, only I'm not covered with 10,000 eyes. I am 10,000 eyes. And my thinking is my seeing, is my being, is myself. And my first recollection how do I say this? My first understanding is to recall that this is me. This is actually me. I was never, ever really this other thing, this human being. This is my truth of myself. And I am content. I am alone in this infinite space. But I'm completely content. I know who I am. I know where I am. I'm in myself. and I can see almost, and this is paradoxical, I can see to the beginning of infinity. Like infinity has no beginning and no end, right? But except for that, I can see across the space of the universe, like with great vision in every direction. But there's a point at which it becomes darkness to me, like darkness that I can't see into. So, and I know in this place that beyond that is infinity. It's like, how do I know that? I don't know how I know that, but I know that that's infinity and I can't see into it. And while this is going on and I recognize myself, I see like an opening in the darkness where the darkness becomes light. It's like a door opens or a thing is ripped open, or I've been describing it these days as a waterfall. So there's like this waterfall of light that suddenly appears, and it's ginormous. I'm big. I'm 10,000 times bigger than I was as a human being, much bigger. And I'm thinking very rapidly because there's no brain in the way of my thinking.
Right.
So
I know that feeling.
Right. Okay. So
this absolute release, it feels like there's just the governor has been removed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested to hear what happened to you.
Sure. We can get into it after. This is
Okay.
I'm completely enthralled in this right now.
All right. So
if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. So this light appears and it's ginormous and it is flowing. So it has all these, everything is paradoxical. It's two things at once and neither cancels the other out. And so it's made up of all of the colors of all of the stars in the sky that night, blues and greens and yellows. I could see all these colors and more colors that I don't see on Earth, like as if I could see X-ray and infrared and ultraviolet and more than that. And it's all these colors at once, and it's also white at once. So it's both of these simultaneous, and its surface is solid, and yet I can see the surface, the solid surface. I can see it's translucent. I can see into it, and it's transparent. I can see through it, and it's all these three things at the same time. And it's this flowing. It's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It's seductive. It's calling to me. It's attractive to me, and I want it, and I move toward it, and it moves toward me, and I get really close to it, and I'm looking right at it, and I touch it with my energy body. So I've got this, I don't have any hands. I put my hand up, but I don't have any hands. It's like my energy self touches it. I want to touch it. And as I touch it, as soon as I come in contact with it, I open up like I am ripped open, and this light flows inside of me and infills me. And then all of these things happen at once. Also, I should say, this is in a place of timelessness. So there's no future or past. So there's no, so everything happens at the same time. I don't know how to explain that.
This is something I often have to talk about. I talk about how we come back from this ineffable experience and have to put it into logical, reasoned language, which also includes chronology. And that doesn't exist in this outside place. So we're always kind of missing the mark. And nowadays, at least I think a lot of us are onto the fact that there's always pieces missing. So the more stories we share, perhaps we can kind of fill in this larger story together, But I think a long time ago, this may have been where religions came from.
Oh, I agree.
Like, yeah, you got the right idea. It's like the idea of the urban legend always has a nugget of truth in it. There is this real thing that we're all everyone that tells these stories is like close to what we all can imagine. You're telling this story in a way that's more revealing to me than I've heard most people tell their stories. Like, you brought a lot back with you, which is really amazing. And I just wanted to jump in with that.
Well, we can talk about that too, because
sure.
I'll give myself a little commercial break and say every religion started with a mystical experience. Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Lao Tzu, Chuang Tzu, and then the theologians get involved, the people who do not have the mystical experience, and it gets codified and doctrinalized, and then it becomes Well, but
The
we all know.
ultimate logicalization, I guess you could say.
Oh,
Of
the interesting
illogical.
phrasing, liesation, lies.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's not it in everything. There's this guy named Pseudo Dionysius from like the 6th century, also known as Dionysius the Agrippid, and he talked about negative theology. And basically,
Mm,
what he said is that anything that you say about God is not true because it's in
interesting.
language, and
Oh, that's great.
once it's
Yeah.
in language, it's limited, and because it's limited, it's not true. So if I say my glasses are good, I can't use the same good word for the divine. I have to say if my glasses are good, then God is not good. But that gets into all sorts of.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. This is something that some of my audience might feel like is a broken record story, but just to articulate this from my perspective, uh, I was heavy into psychedelics, and a friend and I found ourselves like probably hours worth of conversation, tripping really hard, describing either ourselves or life itself. But all we kept doing is saying, it's like this, it's like this. As you said earlier, simile and metaphor, right?
Yeah, it's it.
You can't name it. You can dance around it forever and ever, but you can never come close to it because it's left unexplained on purpose or something.
Well, you can't contain unlimitedness in limited form. And so
Yeah, that's beautiful.
every single mystic who's ever lived, Rumi, I'm a big fan of Rumi and
Me too.
Hafez
Yeah.
and uh, Kabir, and I could go down a whole long list of them, but they all talk in metaphor, every one of them, because there's no other language for it, which is why poetry is the language of mystics.
Makes sense.
So this entity infills me, and I expand, and then all these things happen at once, and I hear the origin of myself being called into being, like in the Bible it says and this is all mythology, okay, just myth, a truth that a story that tells the truth with a capital T that is not true.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
the whole Adam and Eve story, the of the mud, and God breathes life into them. So there's this breath that makes me into existence, but not my physical human self, but my soul consciousness. I am breathed. My consciousness is being breathed into being in the now, but also in the eternal eons of my existence. And so I hear my name called. Like I know that I am being birthed in the moment of my existence, and I had been being birthed in the same moment of my existence for an eternity, and that my creatureliness as a consciousness was created by Creator, and that I am a made being, and I hear myself being created as I'm present to myself, and I see and I'm shown my origin of myself. So I see myself in this original state. I'm sort of like, I describe myself as a singular photon, and I can see this field of photons, and this field of photons is the size of many universes, and it is the divine energy itself that has no gender and has no religion and is all there is, all life. And I am the same substance. I am a photon from this field of photons, but because I am outside of it and connected to it, like again, superpositioned, I'm also in it, but I am a reduction of it.
Right.
Of the
Right.
same like quality, but not of the same quantity, so to speak. And so I am in and of itself light, but I am also created creature from this unlimited. I am a limited consciousness created from this unlimited consciousness, and it shows me the length of my life, my eternal soul life. And so I see the length of my consciousness existence, which is always in the now, but also has a chronology, and I can see the chronology in all of the lives that I had lived previously. So it's like a long piece of French bread, a very long baguette. And in this baguette, I am the baguette. And then there were these tiny toothpicks that are shoved into the baguette. Not many of them compared to the amount of baguette there is.
Yeah.
But all of these little things are my other lives. And none of them are me. I am the baguette. I am not the toothpick. But I see all these other lives and I want to look into them, and I'm allowed to look into them. Like I want to look. And so I get to look into one of my lives, and I see I am brought down into this living, there's a living creature, a human being. I'm inside of this other human body, and I could still see through these eyes. I could still see this, like this cliff face and this walkway, this like dirt road, and I'm inside this other human being, and then I'm out, and then I'm inside some other kind of creature somewhere else, and I don't know whether I was an animal on Earth or another creature in another star system, because everything I'm looking through these eyes now, I have no idea what's going on. Like I don't recognize anything. The colors are different, the light's different. I'm seeing, all these things that I don't understand, and I'm pulled back out again. And but I see that all of those lives, they're not me. The me that is me is this photon, is this baguette. This is the truth of myself. And all these other places, they all seem to be simultaneous to me. So all of these other lives are happening at the same time from my point of view. And even though they seem to be laid out in this chronology. So I see the origin of myself. Meanwhile, the divine is speaking to me, and the divine is heaven itself. I'm like in the belly of like Jonah and the whale. I'm in the belly of the divine, and it is infinity. And it's also, the divine is right next to me, but I can't see the divine as an individuated being. And it's also inside of me, showing me myself. So there's like,
you can feel it, but it's like I've heard the yin yang described as a single fish chasing its own tail, wondering if there's another fish there. Like it's kind of like an old koan in a way, but it's that idea that's like the ghost in the machine. And yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off like that.
No.
It's definitely resonates with me, with my own experiences for sure.
The mystical experiences, every mystic that has ever lived is individuated because of their humanness, their education, their culture, their time period, all this kind of stuff. But there's so much overlap in the others on the other side. There's just overlap upon overlap upon overlap.
Yeah.
So I am this. I also want to understand all of the cosmos. I want to understand how the whole thing works. And I'm suddenly in this download. I understand astronomy and chemistry and biology, and I understand all of that. I understand how it's all put together, but I also understand that it's way beyond my understanding. There's like, I understand it at this level, but then I could see that there's this other level that I am not privy to. But this is much more knowledge than I'd ever had before. And it was as if I had all of the knowledge of all of the databases on Earth were suddenly instantaneously in me. But it only described what I could comprehend as a human being. But in this case, it was only what I could comprehend as a divine entity, not the divine entity, but as a divine entity. And what I knew, this is where I get the idea, of when people say God must have a reason. That's, I didn't understand the reason, and I was there. I was like, this is way beyond my level of comprehension.
Yeah, it almost feels like God doesn't know why it's happening either. If there is God, an individuation, like the answer would be, beats me, let's keep doing it, or something along those lines. It feels like that in a way.
So I'm seeing all this stuff at the same time, and then I have this expansion, and I'm expanded and expanded and expanded. It's just infilling me with paradise and bliss, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, joy, wellness, wholeness, healing, adoration, awe, patience, knowledge, and I'm like a balloon being inflated, and the more of it's pouring into me and pouring into me and pouring into me, the less of me that's there. And so I'm bigger and bigger in this state of union with the divine, and I get to this level in the union with the divine where I still had a little tiny bit of my own individuated consciousness, where I knew that any more would obliterate me and annihilate me back into the divine self, and I would be no more. And
Wow.
then this reduces down again. Now I kind of get deflated back down, and now I go through a hell. And so I go through a hell of my own making. I suffer all of the pain that I ever gave away in my entire life. And so but I'm inside of these other people. I'm inside of, especially, you hurt the ones you love, and it's usually your family. So I'm inside of my sisters and my brother and my parents and my friends. And I experience from their point of view, in a chronology, all of the pain that I'd ever given them in my life. Feeling their emotions, the rush of their adrenaline, or their whatever, their jealousy or their anger or their pain, or all of this. And it's much, much larger in each individual person than I ever imagined, because I'm also having another experience. I am also myself, my formerly human self, inside of that body, experiencing all of my reasons and emotional causations to give them that pain. So I have these points of view simultaneously, and the voice is speaking to me that I am known and that there is nothing about me that is unknown, and I'm in the blaring light of the divine being, and everything of me is completely seen, and I am naked in front of the eye of the divine, exposed. And so as I go through this experience of feeling all of their pain, the voice is present to me, speaking to me, showing me, experiencing for me, giving me love and forgiveness. And it's speaking this to me, but my initial experience of this was shame and guilt. I judged myself as guilty for having caused all this pain, and that all the pain that I had given away to all these people actually accrued to me and was my karma. Was the pain I gave away was mine. I carried that pain with me. And so I see myself in comparison as a limited being, as having been a human limited being, in comparison to the infinite unlimited, and I judge myself as guilty for having caused all this pain. And then it shows me all of humanity. It shows me all of humanity in the brokenness of all of our pain, and how we all give pain to each other. And this is the nature not only of humanity, it shows me that is the nature of nature. It is the nature of the entire universe. Everything. So this knowledge that gets downloaded in me inside of the universe of how the whole thing works, it includes the understanding that the brokenness of human beings that's expressed in the pain that we give each other is the norm throughout the universe. We have black holes consuming star systems, and we have viruses that kill human beings. Everything eats something else. Everything causes pain. Just the other day, I was sitting outside, and I watched this hawk come down and snatch this frog, and the and the hawk's like, dinner. And so there's this always causing pain to survive, and the comparison between the brokenness of the universe and infinity created this radical equality among all of humanity for all of so it wasn't like, and this is hard for folks to hear, but it wasn't like the murderer was worse than me, or I was worse or better than the murderer. I was, because the comparison is always this way. This is the murderer and I'm here, and that person's worse than me. But from my point of view, it was like looking at the earth from the moon, where you can't see any of the mountain peaks. You could just see this round, smooth ball. And the way all humanity looked, it looked like all kind of the same to me, compared to the infinity, the unlimited nature of the divine love. And as this was being shown to me, it said to me, you didn't design this place, I did. You are a creature inside of me, and although you did these things, I have always loved you through every moment of your life, of your human life. There was never a moment that I did not love you, never a moment that I was not you, and with you and through you in these experiences. And I have loved you, and I will love you. I have known you, and I have always known you. And as I listened to this, it was like my ear opened up to its love through the lens of all of the love that I'd given away in my life, and all the love that had been given to me. And as I listened to the love and the forgiveness, so this was like I describe it as a purgative fire of divine love, a consuming purgative fire of divine love burning off. In the Bible, it talks about the wheat and the chaff. And, it's like all my chaff was burned off of my wheat. I'm down to the core of my being, and I don't need this other stuff. It's all been burned away from me. And as this happens to me, this is when the infilling happens that I described moments ago. And here I am telling this story in a circle, okay? So because it all happens simultaneously. So I have this experience where I suddenly hear the divine love and light of love and forgiveness like an ocean pouring into me. And once I listen to it, I am infilled by it and inflated by it. And so there's this, and it all happens at the same time. It's not like this and that and this and that. It's just waboom all at once. And so then I'm back down to reduced to a smaller sort of being that's no longer this expanded balloon self. And I say, am I dead? And the voice says, yes, you're dead. And I say, well, I can't die now. And the voice says, why? It's your time to come home. And this is all, I'm putting all of this in language. There's no
absolutely
word, right?
Yep. I'm with you. Yep.
It's time for you to come home. And I'm like, but my parents are going to lose another child, and I've caused this thing. And so I have this like
a selfless reason to go back. Maybe that I just wanted to earmark that.
And so I'm like, and as I say this, my parents are going to have more suffering. I am swept across heaven. So this heaven is infinite place, okay? But I'm swept to the edge of infinity, which is paradoxical in itself. And at the edge of this infinity is like where the Higgs boson field, if you're familiar with that, where energy becomes matter, and it's like a field. And so I'm kind of poked out of heaven. Most of me is still back inside of it, but enough of my consciousness is outside of it. I'm in this air. I pass through this field of where energy becomes matter, and I can see our entire universe now, and all of it. I can see all of the universe, all of the galaxies, and then I can see all of them. It's not like I'm like looking at this one and looking at that one, all of it all at once. And then my vision is directed toward what would be called the Big Bang. So to the origin of the universe itself. And as I look at the origin of the universe of itself, I experience, I am shown the outpouring of love that is all there is. So there's this love this wave of love that makes all these galaxies exist. And then there were universe upon universe upon universe, like multiverses being laid out one after the other, and all at the same time. Well, like a fan, all these universes, and they're all made of the same substance of love, and it's being spoken to my being inside of me, inside of heaven, and I can see that it's also being spoken into all things that exist, all these universes. And as it unfolds, all these multiverses after multiverses after multiverses, I can see that beyond that is the origin of the divine itself, and I can't see that. I can only experience its expression of love for all there is. And as I'm looking and experiencing this love, it's speaking to me saying, in the way that I love you now, I have always loved you. And this love is a billion zillion times greater than all of the love that I've ever experienced, or all love of all humanity all at once in one place times a bazillion zillion. It doesn't even come close to the amount of love that was directed right at me. And I have always loved you. I have always known you. And all is well, has been well, and will be well. And as this love is being flooded into me, my vision is brought down to our galaxy, to our planetary system, to Earth, and I see all of Earth in a holographic form. And I can see through Earth, and I can see 7 billion people at once. I see everybody. And it's not like I'm looking at you, and then I'm looking at you, and then I'm looking at you. I see every single person at the same time. And inside of every single person is this gold light of this little tiny golden fleck of gold dust of light. And it is the divine presence that makes all things exist. And no one on earth can see it inside themselves or in other people. There's like this foam covers all of earth, and it's this preventer, this veil through which people cannot see. But I can see, and the voice says, nothing is lost. Everyone is beloved. All of this is me. This is me. I am all that there is, and I love myself. And in the way that I love you with this intensity, I felt like the most important person in all the universe. But it also said, so is everybody else. so is everything else. You are particularly, especially loved, but everyone is particularly and especially loved, and no one and nothing is lost because of my love. All are welcome back. And then it shows me, and people are killing. I'm seeing wars. I'm seeing wars and submarines and people in elevators, and I see babies being born, and everybody's got the same golden speck inside them, even the murderers. And so, and as I see this, my parents' faces appear, and I see all of their collected lifetime of suffering up to this point. This is like live time. I'm seeing this in live time. I'm seeing what's actually going on. And so I see my parents, then I see all their collective suffering in their faces. And then I see these, so I know the depth of their pain.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel their pain, but I can see their pain. And I then see these two parallel life tracks appear. And one of their life tracks is without me in the world, and their pain is magnified. And then I see simultaneously their lives with me back in the world. And then I see their deaths, and in their deaths I see the equality of their consciousness to mine. And the voice says, they will be here like that because I now see the length of a human life is that fast.
Right.
And that if you wait a moment, they're going to die, and they may suffer this without you, but they're going to be here with you in this peace and bliss, and all is well and has been well. So why don't you stay? But gives me this choice. And I say, well, can I come back here? If I go back, can I come back here? And the voice says, yes, you can come back here. And I said, well, then I choose to live my life so that my parents will have less suffering. And the voice says, you won't live your life, and throws me out. And I get thrown out, and I get shot away. And I'm still like back, this angelic being, which is God itself, is with me. And I'm sort of enwrapped in this, and I'm being reformed. And suddenly, as I'm shooting way through heaven through this, I don't know how to describe this place. It's like this. It's not the Higgs boson field. It's the void. I'm going back to this void that up through which I came. But now in front of me are a million doorways, and all these million doorways are in these concentric circles. And in the center of the circle is a ginormous white beam, much bigger than all of the doorways all together. And its light pervades all the way to the outer edge of these doorways, but it gets faded as it goes to the outer edge. So the closer to the intensity of the light. And the voice says to me, choose a door, choose. But it says to me, choose the light. It says, choose a door, choose the light. And I'm like, I choose to have some autonomy. I wanted some humanness. I wanted creativity. I didn't want to go into the pure light. I wanted to be a human person. And so I choose a door as soon as I have this thought, the door is chosen. And it's close to the center of the light. It's close to the center, not to the center of the light, but to the edge of the light, but it's not in the beam of light. And I'm inside this door, and I'm traveling down this tunnel, and there's all these other doors inside this tunnel, and they're all leading to all these other doorways in the tunnels, and they're all probabilities that I could live based on the choices of my life. And I see my life in front of me. I see as I go by, I see the life I will live. But it's not like fate and destiny. It's like it still has all these doorways.
Right. They just all lead back here.
They all lead back here. That's right.
Yeah.
And so now I'm down outside my body, and I can see my body. And I'm being crushed down like in a compactor, and then jabbed into my heart space here and twisted in like an ice screw. Like I felt like it was an ice screw, and it was like this grinding to get inside, painful thing. And then I'm inside this body, and I have no control over this. This is being done to me. I'm like, I can't stop it if I wanted to, and I wanted to. And so I'm inside of this thing, and I experience my brain winding up like a computer, like it's like this thing comes back online. And as this thing comes back online, I'm sealed off from heaven. There's this like, I am no longer connected to that. And now I'm inside of this this thing, and I feel my brain come back online. I don't understand what's going on, and then pain, like the brain comes back online, and all I feel is suffering and pain. And it's not just the physical frozenness of it, which is painful, the burning and the icy blocks on my feet. It's just being in a human body is awful.
Yeah, when we realize, it's such an interesting experience. I've talked to a number of people about that, how when we can actually get into that state of awareness where we can feel the body, it's very relatable to the idea of feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders as well. It's that fractal thing, the micro to the macro. It's all very heavy and dense here. Hence all the metaphors throughout every religion of evil and devils and ground crawling animals, low, dense. Yeah.
Here.
So anyway,
here.
Yes. Yeah. Here, this wonderful, beautiful
Awful.
alchemical place we're in, but
right. And so I begin to hear, and I hear sound, and I'm like, what is this? And then my brain understands language, and I hear, Tim, you're dead. Don't die. Don't die. Don't die. Don't die. Don't die. Don't die. And I open my eyes up, and he's like, you're alive. Oh my God. I thought you were dead. You were dead. Oh my God. If you die. And he's crying, and I was going to die because he needed me. And so then he helps me stand back up, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Who are you? And who am I? And where was I? And what is this thing? And slowly it all kind of, I understand who he is and what's going on. And he's like, pull the rope. And I pull the rope. And I guess I had, because we're on this ledge, I guess I had when I fell asleep, I landed on the ledge, but I guess this time I must have kind of fell off the ledge a little bit because I stood back up. I was strapped in, right? So I was hooked into the mountain. And so I stand back up, and he's like, pull the rope. And I pull the rope, and it comes free on the first pull.
Ooh.
And so now we've got the rope, and he descends, and I go down behind him. We go over to the car, we get the tent out, we set it up, and we treat ourselves for hypothermia. And so for all you hypothermic guys and Arctic guys, this is a super Arctic tent. It's got a vent and a chimney, so we can fire up the stoves inside the tent. So we fire up the stoves inside the tent, and we drink warm water, warmer. We get inside our sleeping bags, we heat our bodies back up to a temperature at which we can get into the car and then fire up the heaters in the car. And then I'm an entirely different person. I came back an entirely different person. I am not the person I was before I went.
Hence the cryptic phrase, "You're not going to live your life."
Yep. And I was pretty pissed off as I came to understand that my life was over. I thought I was going to go back and be me. Well, I didn't understand.
Same hobbies, same interests, same knowledge, same everything.
Well, I was the same physical body, and everybody treated me as if I was the same person, but I was not the same person. And my whole life changed entirely. And so my experience is not unique. There are other people I've met who've been to the place of no thingness, but I have found these things to be true about near-death experience. If you aim your heart at the oneness of being with the intent of that alone, it keeps revealing itself to you. That's been happening. It keeps revealing itself to me. So I've over the years come to learn more about myself and my experience there by getting out of the way. So I practice meditation, I practice Kriya Yoga, and the whole process is the elimination of the egoic attachment to the egoic self. And the more that I practice that, the deeper I'm able to go inside myself, the more I'm able to see who I actually am and what happened to me. And I didn't go and why people are wondering why I'm articulate about this is because I came back as a messenger, and my job is to communicate this. I use language to communicate it, but really I want to use Shaktipat. I want to be able to communicate this directly because there's no way to really explain it. But when it's an energetic communication, when myself is not in the way, then the divine sees itself and it resonates inside another person. So I didn't go to graduate school in architecture. I went to divinity school to study mysticism. I got talked into being a minister, and I figured it was a fine place to hide out as a mystic. Who's gonna question the minister who's meditating? Nobody. Or studying the ancient texts? Nobody's gonna ask questions about that. So I'm going to stop. I know that I went way over the time we had talked about.
No. I always suggest, like, let's start at an hour. Let's both put ourselves in the perspective of this might go an hour, but it might go longer. Depends on how we jive. And like you have, like I said, the articulation, man, this is the story that's resonated with me more than anybody else's story when it comes to these mystical, ineffable, as I like to call them, experiences.
Ineffable. That's my word. That's the
Yeah,
word.
I really like it. Even though, I mean, you are, again, articulate about what you experienced, this ineffability where, you're explaining it as a chronological thing, but it's not a chronological thing. And there's so many paradoxes mixed in that for people way outside of this realm of thinking, we sound like crazy people.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea of you being treated the same as if nothing had happened to you by all the people in your life that know you, quote unquote. Oh man, I resonate with that. And you really do come off like, at least the way I brought it out was, uncertainty and trying to put it into logical terms. It came off frightening to other people in some cases. It rattles people when you're faced with people that have gone through these things.
So I kept it a secret for most of my life. That's why.
Wow.
So I locked my lips for 20 years. I didn't tell anybody. Well, that's not quite true. I told my childhood best friend, a backpacker, a guy I'd known since I was a kid. And I told him on a backpacking trip in the White Mountains. Right?
Wow, nice.
So like the year later, because he knew that I was different. All right. So and then I told my wife the day after we got married.
Cool.
And I kept, otherwise I told one other guy, he saw this thing happen, and I had to tell him because I didn't want to end up in a mental ward, because people can think it's crazy. And so I had to explain to him why. And anyway, I finally came out. I know what I was going to say. I wanted to build up my professional credibility to a point at which, and trust in my communities, to a point at which, if I finally did come out, then people would think he's just eccentric, not crazy.
There you go. Okay. That's a really mature way to handle a really insane experience. I mean, I came out like many others, screaming from the rooftops, trying to paint the walls and just say everything I possibly could. I felt immediately this like weight of, I need to tell everybody.
Oh yeah.
This needs to be known. Of course, I look back and I love that version of myself, and I just want to hug them and laugh like, oh, you'll get it later,
Well, I was pissed. So that's why I had the strength to shut my mouth, because I was pissed off at God, because I was like, we self-treat for hypothermia. The warden comes to see whether we need the helicopter to get us the bodies off the mountain. And we begin our drive back. We end up in jail for a few hours. We have to pay our way out.
Really? Why was this?
Because Tim sped through a town, and we were Americans, and we refused to pay the fine at the moment, because he's like, you Americans, you never paid the fine. We're not going to pay it. Give us, and he's like, so he puts us in jail. So anyway, we paid the fine, and we get out, and then I totaled the car. And
oh my God.
And yeah, I totaled the car. And so the next morning, not the morning we survived, but the next morning, Tim was livid at me. I hitchhiked. We had enough money left that he could take a bus back from where we were to Bozeman with the skis and the poles and all this stuff. And I made because I was a hitchhiker. So I made a little sign that says Bozeman, and I start to hitch. And as I'm standing outside at sunup, trying to get back to Bozeman, I was wicked angry, because I inside of me there was this ongoing roar like a waterfall, loud, 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 and it's non-language, it's non-linguistic, and it's calling my name, the same name. It's like showing me myself, and it's telling me to communicate. Speak this, tell this, and it's like, you tricked me. You tricked me. You sent me back here, and I'm not living my life, even though it told me you wouldn't live your life. I was, pissed that I wasn't living my life. And so because I was angry at God for doing this to me, I'm like, I'm not saying a fucking word.
Wow. That is so intense, man. So like conscious of like aware of the situation you were in.
And so I dove into my meditation, and I went to divinity school. I studied mysticism. So I didn't go to graduate school in architecture. Family plan for my whole life. My dad was, and they had an office outside of Boston, and architectural firm, and I've been pushing a pencil and working in construction, trying to get my set up for this grad degree. And I went to divinity school instead to study mysticism. And so I went to Yale, and they don't teach that there, but the dean of students allowed me to take classes across the university. So there were classes in it around the university. And so I did a 3-year independent study, and she found money to hire a professor for me. I never told her what I was doing, why I was doing it. And so I dove into the history of Western classical mysticism, and also the East. I've read a lot of the other texts, the Upanishads and the Vedas and all that stuff. And I was looking for language to understand what happened to me. I was looking for a peer group. I found my peer group among the dead mystics, and I found the tools, Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Panagore, from the Yoga Sutras. I found the tools that they left behind, Patanjali is thousands of years old of tools, and I incorporated those into my interior practice. And so I drove my interior practice in order to create a space inside myself to bring heaven to me now.
Wow.
And the history of mysticism is that's what they do. Basically it's always breath and focus, those two things. And they lead to the emptiness, the end of identity, the end of self-identity, of the attachment to the egoic mind. And the more that one is, the less one is attached to oneself, the more one is witness to oneself, the less one has a filter for the divine's presence. And here I sit, and then I died again in 2015, and I got a lot of other stuff happened, but.
So yeah, we may have to do another episode on that one, but just real quick question, was that one of the same ilk, like, accident sort of situation?
Heart attack.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Congenital, family history, and not nearly as intense, but I chose to come back again.
Okay, so you did have the experience again. I've heard this a number of times from near-death experiencers, that if the situation occurs that they have a close call again, that they are swept away once again. It's almost like, he had the secrets revealed to him once. He can come back this time for this brief moment again, I guess,
Yeah, there are people who have like 9 of them. There was this guy I know in Australia. He died like 9 times on the operating table, and every single event of his death, of his subsequent death, was a different experience of the divine.
That makes sense. That fan you described of all the lives, I feel like I kind of experienced the divine in that sense too, where it's like everything is of this massive gradient, and it's all the same thing, but it's all different at the same time. Like that paradox again.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm curious to know if you feel like the way, I'm not sure how much you've judged this, like the way in which you came back from that original experience, the way you handled yourself, the way you responded to it. Do you feel, and even also including the way you went into it, like kind of recognizing that peace washing over you a little bit, do you feel like your time with psychedelics in younger years, which led you, I believe you said, into meditation even before this happened, do you think these things prepared you in a way that may have vastly altered this whole experience for you had you not gone to those realms beforehand?
Yeah, they helped me understand what happened to me in hindsight. So when I was a child, 5 years old, I had my first mystical experience taken out of myself and brought into the divine presence in the void. And
Oh,
I had another one subsequent to that, and then I had that triple hit of purple microdot San Pedro
hell yeah.
cactus. And then the year before this happened, I was backpacking on the Appalachian Trail in Massachusetts, headed
Nice.
towards Mount Greylock, and
Oh, cool.
it was like 8 inches of snow on the ground, and I had two other out of body mystical experiences where the same angelic form that took me as a child, the same one that took me in my death, it took me out and showed me other things, and it was each one of those mystical experiences, including the tripping one, that after I got information that I didn't understand, I had no context for it, and
Right.
after I died, I could look back and think and see, oh, this thing and that thing and this thing set me up for this thing, and now I understand this thing through those things. I would not have understood this thing. I'd understood this thing had I not had these other things.
Right. And that's when you look at God and you're like, oh, and you did that. And he's just like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like,
Well, he, she, what this
right. Yeah.
non-individuated thing is just giving you that nod and a smirk, like, see, yeah.
You thought it was hard then. Now you know why.
Unreal, man. This is fascinating how parallel the experiences can be sometimes. And I think we find communion with that with each other. The way that, like, I mean, this is when it comes to like people building communities, we build them over many, many similarities and many different things that we can find in common with one another. But there's something so crucial or important, even though it's not a necessarily, it doesn't automatically happen to everybody by no means, but this feels very crucial. These coming together and being able to kind of understand one another from the other side, even though you can't put it into language, finding one another all over this beautiful earth of ours that has a similar experience in this realm. I think we're connecting dots here. We're building one of those big pictures where we're literally connecting dots. We're building a tapestry together or something like that, kind of like you say, you've made a space for the divine or heaven now. It's almost like we're kind of collectively bringing it here now. It's almost like the only way to make it logical is across the board, because logical is kind of just like when it makes sense to everybody. Well, this is like a dream I had when I was 17, going, man, if only we could poison the water with LSD, just that immature thought, like a Band-Aid right off to the whole world.
Yeah. That's I'm in agreement with you that so near-death experience in 1960s came online with cardiac care when people have always been dying and coming back, and people were always taking psychedelics. That goes back, way before religion. And so they were always shamanistic people. But the near-death experience thing, although it's in the historical record around the world, it was fairly rare, but now it's not rare. Now it's like 5% of the American population have been in a medical situation where they've been brought back from the dead. And we are an army. We are a global group of science-driven, mystical people in every single culture, in every single language, every single country around the world by the tens and tens of millions. And now we've got people like you out here running podcasts, communicating about this, giving voice, helping me have a voice. Thank you.
Yes.
And so the more of us that can talk about this and normalize it in the public square, the more we can find a way, because humanity, we really haven't changed much in 300,000 years. We're still driven by our jealousies and our greeds and our envies and our power, our desire for power. All our political systems and social structures, they haven't solved these problems. There's only one thing that can solve that, and that's what we're talking about. It's this divine love and light. When we recognize that we are inhabitants of our bodies as much as we're inhabitants of the world, and that the origin of ourself is divine love, when we can tap into that and then communicate it heart to heart, then we have a chance here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like on an individual level, when the person that, doesn't have that sight about themselves from one of these experiences is trying to face problems in their life that are reoccurring, whether they're aware of that reoccurrence or not. it's always that response, that egoic response of, I'll figure it out. I'm gonna figure that out. I'll take care of that. I'll sort out those things. But that never happens, from that logical, reasoned side of the brain. It just doesn't happen. But from this other perspective, facing inward, facing yourself, it actually gets the work done. And so when you look out at all of our political systems, all of our everything that we're run by is the ego. If we can kind of break it like that, put the macro onto, like, dress up the macrocosm as a person, it really does feel that way, that it's just a spoiled brat that hasn't come to terms with himself, and does that happen all at once overnight, the Aquarian dream? I don't know. It feels very progressive or something, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'd like to see it happen overnight, but I know this. So when I go to these, there's this group called the International Association for Near-Death Studies. It's like a 45-year-old group, or 40 years old. I'm not sure, 40 or 45 years old. And they're science-based, university-based research on near-death experience. And they run conferences. And when I go to the conferences, because that's where I found my tribe. There are other near-death experiences there. So I go to, and when I walked into this place the first time, this conference was in Denver, in this hotel. And when I walked in the door, it was like the Yellow Submarine cartoon, where they're human beings and they walk into this place and they become cartoons. You're like, but it was sort of like that, because I walk into this bubble of intense light, and now my own radiance is magnified in the presence of all these other people who've got this same experience, similar experiences of the radiance inside themselves. And so now we're all kind of collectively creating this much larger bubble. It's like Jesus was talking about, where 2 or 3 are gathered, I am there. It's the I am that he's talking about. It's the divine presence that's magnified in the presence of each other. So there is a potential for, if enough of us awaken, to create a bigger bubble of the divine presence. And would that change? I want to nudge. Really, what I'm looking for is to nudge humanity in this direction. That all of us together collectively, as like individual diodes, but connected to a fiber optic cable back to the divine light, where all these individual diodes shining light on each other, that the whole thing becomes illuminated. I don't know that that's going to happen, because it does seem to me to be, it is progressive, it is progressing, but it seems incremental to me at this point. But so what I'm really trying to do in my work is create a place in the public square for it to be normalized. Let's and this is what you're doing, because people have mystical experiences, and sometimes they happen through psychedelics, but sometimes they happen through the visitation of the dead. So like somebody's grieving for somebody they love who's gone, and then they come back and they communicate directly in this very similar telepathic download of love and wellness of being. And then that individual person now knows that that other person who's dead isn't dead, that they're still alive in a different form, and that now they understand that there is life after death. And so, and like half the population's had that kind of thing. So studies show. And so there's a lot of us. And if we can get
out of the closet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we can all admit that these things happen to us. So I was, I had this TV show. When it ended, I toured New England and in little tiny churches. Toured New England. I was on a bus. No, I was like these little tiny churches on all over these places. And I would ask the question, who here has ever had a visitation from the dead? Nobody would raise their hand, of course, because they're all like afraid to do so. And then I would raise my hand, and then half the congregation of every single church would raise their hand. 50%. Wow. Every church I was in. And then I would say, was this a seminal spiritual event for you? Yes, it was, everybody says. And then I said, did you tell anybody? Yes, everybody told somebody. Did you ever talk about it in church? Nobody. Zero.
Wow. That's weird.
Well, everybody's afraid to talk about it. They could talk about it to one person, a trusted person.
That's fair, yeah.
It's like this open, private, public secret.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping to do is get everybody to talk about their experience. And when everybody talks about their experience, then it becomes normal, and then we can move on from there. Then that gives us a basis for maybe reshaping society, because as you correctly say, society is a collection of egoic minds. And as long as the ego's in charge, society's going to suck.
Yeah, and it's going to keep, thinking that the systems that are here are going to fix themselves, like, oh, this one put a different mask on this time.
Exactly.
That's ego. That's me doing the same behavior over and over again and thinking I'm going to get to the solution to it tomorrow.
And that is insanity.
Yeah, it is. And it's all in our faces, and I think the more people talk about this, people don't necessarily have to have this experience to get the bigger pictures that we talk about because of these experiences. Those are extremely human and relatable. So that's the good connection to the normie world, I guess you could say, that we still have. It's not that this information that is important that we can actually logically put into language is I don't know, it's still very valid to everybody else. It's the same world problems, it's the same psychological struggles and problems that we can build on and find better solutions to. It's just from a better perspective, it's from a more humble perspective.
It's the word.
I really appreciate this conversation, and your experiences, man, have kind of helped me tonight get back there a little bit. My only experiences come from the psychedelic realm, and even friends that I was with on those specific trips didn't come back the same way that I did. Like it's not necessarily automatic. It's never automatic. I tell my wife all the time, oh man, I think you'd really love if you did trip, and she's thinking about it, but at the same time, she's not going to come back necessarily with the same download I did, or, it doesn't always hit people the same. And I think that's the lesson that I learned, and I'm continuously learning, is people come to things in their own time. Yeah. And when it happens to you, it happens to you, but we can try to be those beacons of light as much as possible.
That's exactly it. You can show it, but not demand it.
Yeah. And that's a learning process too,
Yep.
Starting from screaming about it. But, it's something that you brought to mind, something that Ram Dass used to talk about, how when you come back from this experience, you want to run down the church aisles, screaming, all those words you're singing are the truth. And it's very relatable to what you said about how, like, in church, people felt very uncomfortable to talk about this direct experience. But it's like the church should be the ultimate place, because everybody's already saying the words, right? Like, there's mysticism in all of those stories, whether people see it that way or not. It can be looked at that way. All the hymns, everybody's singing about what we experience. Most of them just don't know, because the experience hasn't, it's not important anymore. It's told that, just come here into this building and listen to these words, and then you're experiencing God. And it's kind of taking away from what the real experience is. And it's just so ironic that it's all written right there anyway.
We could go way down that route. I have a lot to say on that particular subject, but
maybe we'll have to do a part 2.
I'd love that. This is it. Yeah, we could talk a lot about that.
Okay, well, I think we should definitely set that up at some point. But I'll let you go for now. And this has been epic, and I hope people will reach out to you. Please tell my audience where they can find you.
I'm at peterpanagore.love, and I've got a YouTube channel called it's Peter Panagore, called Not Church. It's under my name. My channel is Peter Panagore. But I do what we're talking about right here, is I show the light inside the scriptures that are hidden there. And also bring in a whole lot of other mystics from around the world. But peterpanagore.love. You want to talk to me personally? I'm available.
That's awesome. That's great, Peter. And it was really nice to meet you and get to know you tonight. And yeah, I look forward to speaking to you again, and we can go into some other topics for sure.
Cool. Good to meet you, Andy.
And maybe I'll get around to telling you my story at some point.
I would love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your story.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, vegetarian. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...